Hello everybody, and thank you for joining me for another edition of Movies That Wrecked My Childhood. Or maybe I called it Ruined. Either way, I felt weird calling this one that because I literally love this movie so much. This was literally a pivotal movie for me in so many ways. Now, the movie we're talking about, you saw the thumbnail, it's Misery. Now, this was a Stephen King novel. Now, I'm going to say this, y'all. I remember reading this book by Stephen King. I think I was in like 6th grade. And I could not put it down, okay? It was like a drug. Now, this book was probably the first book I ever got that feeling off of. And that's probably why this movie is like so special to me. So fast forward a little bit later, I remember sitting there and watching TV one day and the trailer came on and I instantly knew. It showed the house and I got that vibe of that seems like the house that was described. And then they showed the pig and I was like, oh my God, it's the Stephen King movie. So, you know, I rushed out. Now, here's the thing. As everyone always says this about everything, y'all, the book is so much better, okay? It is so much better, but the movie is top-notch amazing too, okay? The book is more grotesque. I would say it's more psychological. The movie with Kathy Bates, James Caan, I mean, amazing. Y'all, this movie put Kathy Bates on the map for me. I was just like, oh my God. I will always view Kathy Bates as Annie Wilkes, point blank, period. Try to convince me differently. So what we're going to do for this is just going to be another one of my, story time, movie explain type situations. Yes, there are spoiler alerts. Yes, you could still watch the movie after this and still have some surprises to it. And you could 100% read the book. And honestly, when I was going back over this, I was like, I think that I'm going to go read the book again. I mean, it's been a hot minute. Obviously, 6th grade was not yesterday for me. So in this movie, we see Paul Sheldon. Now, he is a world famous writer. He has this whole series of books that center around a character named Misery, however you want to say it, Chastain. Now, Paul has this whole little thing that he does. He goes to the Silver Creek Lodge when he finishes a book, and that's where he stays. He finishes the book, and then he leaves. So this particular time he finishes, he does this little routine. He hops in the car. Now, y'all, it is like snowing hardcore, okay? And to the point, I'm from the South, so I was watching this and I was like, there's absolutely no, why would you even think to drive in that? Maybe somebody from the North is like, that's nothing. But I was even like, maybe for a Northerner, I just, it's a little unbelievable. But regardless, he leaves, he's jamming out, and then all of a sudden his car flips, it goes down this embankment, and oh my God. And then you see these boots come and they wrestle him out of the car and they drag him off, and you're like, thank God. And they grab his manuscript and his little leather satchel. And herein we enter the twisted world of Annie Wilkes. So Annie will take him back to her house and she will nurse him back to health, essentially. That only lasts for a little bit. So we see kind of his perspective. He comes up and she's there and I'm your #1 fan. I'm your #1 fan. That is where this came from. And she is his #1 fan to a detrimental point. So Annie explains like what happened to him. She's like, look, you know what? You got all tore up in this car wreck. I'm a nurse. I have stuff here. The roads are totally messed up. As soon as the phone lines are back up and the roads are up, I'm gonna, get you to help, call your people, yada, yada, yada. And so she's like, I fixed your legs up, and she takes the covers off, and y'all, oh my God. I mean, I'm just like, oh my God, I can't imagine how bad that would have hurt. So his legs are just mush. They are black and blue and broken and twisted and all this stuff. And she's made like little, cast things for him or whatever. And so of course he's just like, oh my God, thank you. I mean, it has to be awkward. And he's like, look, could you call my daughter, my agent, these people? She's like, yep, I'll take those when the phone lines are up, or if they don't come up, I'll go into town when the roads are open. So she's created this nice little window, if you will. So now eventually Annie will be like, hey, I saw that little manuscript of yours in the leather satchel. I see it's your new book. You mind if I read it? And now Paul's kind of like, I usually only let like my agent and people like that, but also people who save me from a horrifying car wreck. And of course, she's just like in her weird way, like, oh, Oogie Boogie, you're so sweet. Thank you. Well, that was the worst mistake he ever made. First of all, the new manuscript that he wrote is not another Misery book. Now, keep this in the back of your mind. his latest Misery book is getting ready to come out and hit the shelves, okay? And what she doesn't know is it's his last one, but we'll get to that. So she starts reading this book, and it's like totally outside his normal stuff. So at one point, you know, she's trying to beat around the bush, and at this point she's still nice, and she's like, it's the cursing, Paul. I don't like the cursing. It's just, it's not, you know, it's not my thing. And Paul's like, look, this book is focusing on these street kids. I was a street kid. That's how they talk. And Miss Annie didn't want to hear any of that. Okay. She goes off, and you start to see this other side of her. And she's like, well, cock-a-doodle-doo, and all this stuff, and dropping the soup, and all these things. And then she reels herself in, and she's like, you must think I'm nuts. And it's like, yeah, pretty much, but you know, we're kind of stuck here in the bed with smushed legs, so there's that. So now all this time, keep in mind, you know, Paul's like, how about those phones? How about those roads? And she keeps saying, yeah, you know what, this happened, and you know, that happened, and I haven't been able to get through, and this and that, and da-da-da-da. She's still keeping that going. Now a pivotal point in the movie will come when that final book of Misery is released, and Annie comes back, and she has the very first copy of it that she gets from the store. Now, as the days go by, you know, she's in this complete manic high. She even brings her pig Misery into the bedroom to meet Paul, the whole 9 yards. And so it's a hot mess, and you just kind of see what's coming down the pipeline. Obviously, there's a connection that Paul makes. He's like, you made it into town to get a book. You know, what's up? You know, have you gotten a hold of people? Have you know, let's leave, whatever. And she's just like, oh, no, you know what? I left a message for that agent, you know, and the road to the hospital still ain't clear. So, you know, we're going to get to that. So she keeps going. She keeps reading this book, and then the manic high will come crashing. And the manic high ends when she realizes that Paul has killed off Misery. Paul was sick of writing these books, and so he was like, I'm going to kill her and be done with her. And you're just like, oh my God. Now to Annie, this is a real person. This is her world. This is her life. And so this is like somebody literally killing her pet pig or something. Now, during this whole thing, when it sets her off and everything, this is when her true colors come out, and she lets him know there ain't no hospital trip. There ain't no phone lines. There ain't nothing. You know, I haven't called any of those people. I'm not going to call any of those people. If something happens to me, and I think she says, if I die, you die. So clearly this is problematic. And let's just fast forward a little bit to another pivotal part. So Paul awakens at one point, and Annie is wheeling in a grill. And she takes the thing off, and his leather satchel is sitting there with lighter fluid and matches. And he's like, Annie, what are you doing? And she pulls out the manuscript that he wrote, the one that she said there's too much cursing and stuff. Okay. Now, y'all, this is one of the things where in the book, this part, I mean, you can imagine how psychologically tormenting this is for him. So she's sitting here basically saying, I know what needs to happen. You need to rid the earth of this. This is just, no, you know, absolutely not. And he's trying to play it off. And he's like, well, you know, I can burn this copy, but my agent has one. And she's a stalker, of course. And she's like, nope. In an article dated in this time, you said that your routine is you only have one copy because you're superstitious. And I know that this is the only copy. And he keeps trying to bluff her. And she's like, okay, then if there's other ones, then burn it. And so he keeps refusing, and she like douses it with lighter fluid, but then she starts like throwing it on him too and telling him something, you know, kind of going off on one of her weird little tangents. You're just like, oh my God, this woman is twisted. So finally Paul lights the match and burns his manuscript, and your heart is just like, oh my God. You know what it reminds me of is, remember Little Women when the sister throws the book in the fireplace? I mean, if you've ever written, if you've ever done something, you know how painstaking it is to write a book, even a damn short story. It's just like, oh my God. Okay. So obviously all bets are off. He knows that she is completely psycho. Now again, fast forward a little bit, we'll find out one of her ulterior motives, besides, you know, just being completely out there, is that she wants Paul to write another book. And so she has gone out, she got him a little wheelchair, she got him a little typewriter, she got him a little table and chair, all this stuff. And so she gets them all set up and she's like, you're going to write another misery book. You know, you're going to figure it out. You're a writer, bring her back to life. Like, that's up to you, but that's what you're doing. Now, during this whole interaction, Paul sees that she has dropped a hairpin onto the floor from one of her outbursts. And so he makes up this whole thing where he's like, this is wonderful, Annie, and I can't wait. But you know what? The paper that you got me, it smudges. And, you know, could I just get a different kind? Because, I mean, this is misery. This is, you know, our love of our life. We want to make sure we do it right. And Annie's just kind of like, interesting. Well, this ends up like really pissing her off, and she slams the paper down on his legs, and my God, James does such an amazing part and, you know, acting part in this movie by expressing the pain that she inflicts on him. So you're just like, ugh. So she gets in the truck and she goes into town to get this paper. Well, Paul uses the hairpin and it hits the door, and you're like, oh my God. Y'all, in the book, these parts, I mean, you're just like, oh my God, the intensity, and even in the movie. So he gets out, he realizes the front door is locked, he can't get out of there. So then he goes to the living room. Now, while he's in there, he will knock one of her little figurines off the table, and he puts it back on the table, but he turns it the wrong way, and that will come back to bite him in the butt later. So then he also makes his way, he finds the medication that she's been giving him, he steals some of that, puts it in his crotch area, and then he also sees that basically there's no way out of this house. So then it's like, oh my God, I have to go back to the room or whatever. So he's like going and you're seeing the other things of Annie's on her way back, and you're just like, this is not going to be good if she finds him. So just in time, he gets the door locked, he puts himself in place, he's dripped in sweat, and she comes back in, and she's in her, like, you know, psycho nice, like, toxic positivity mode, and she's like, oh my God, you poor thing. And so she's like, you know, let me get you some medicine, and and she gets him all hooked back up in the bed and everything. So she gives him a notepad in case he wants to write. She gives him his pills, but he doesn't take those. Now, you know, you'll start to see Paul start on this book. He's gumming these pills and he's saving the powder up. That will become relevant later. And so all that's going on. So when Paul comes up with a way that he's going to bring misery back to life, and he's like, no, absolutely not. This is like cheating. And she goes on this rant and she's talking about these chapter stories she used to go to the movies and watch. And I can remember cartoons and stuff doing this, like To Be Continued. And like, say it would show the people, and I think the example she uses is they go off the cliff and the car blows up and crashes, but then the next week it shows them getting out of the car right before it does. And she's like, no, you can't. They didn't get out of the cock-a-doodle-doodling car. So she makes Paul start the book over. So the story continues. Paul gets things on the right track. Annie's loving it. She is in another manic high. I mean, this is just this wonderful thing. And so then Paul's like, Annie, let's have dinner, you know, like as a celebration of to misery and all that. And she's just so like, oh my goodness, I'm flattered. I don't know. What would I wear? And I'm just like, oh my God, the fact that like she even would think that, you know, that he's wanting to like have dinner with her in any other way than to maybe do something shady. So anyways, she makes this big fancy candlelight dinner, and they're gonna get all plated up and all this stuff. Well, remember, he's been saving all those pills up. Okay, so he's like has this big like little folded piece of paper of the pills. So Paul's able to distract Annie, and he puts this whole little powder thing in her wine, and then as they go to do the toast, she slips, she knocks her wine glass over, and all that work on his part is down the drain. So the storyline continues with Paul writing, and it's like a fast forward in time. Now at one point, Annie will come into his room, and it's like she's in like this really manic, weird mode, and she's basically like, here's your pills, and she talks about like ending it all, ending her life, all this kind of stuff, and then she basically just kind of disappears. Now at this point, Paul will be able to get out of the room again, and this time he finds out some pretty like tawdry information about her. He finds a scrapbook, and it has clippings that are showing all of these crimes she's committed. She's killed numerous people, numerous patients, and he's like, oh my God, this woman is like, I already knew she was crazy, but this woman is absolutely insane. Now he will, before he goes back to his room on this trip, he'll grab like one of those big knives, like a Michael Myers knife, and he'll take it back to the room or whatever. He will hide it like in a little slit in his bed where he's been putting these pills. So then, and y'all, this part right here, this is damn trigger warning, okay? So he'll wake up, she's like gonna sedate him, all this stuff, and he's like, what's going on? And she has a wood block between his legs, and she's telling him the story about hobbling, and she'll pull up a sledgehammer. Now here's the thing, y'all. In the book, the scene, these are some of the differences, is so horrible. In the book, she actually chops his feet off with an axe, okay? In the movie, they didn't do that. And when I saw the trailer, I was like, how are they going to do that scene? So it made sense with the sledgehammer. And y'all, oh my God. This scene is just horrifying because you know what's going to happen. And she's telling the story. And you know, like, some major pain is getting ready to happen. And then she just pulls back and just chops it, or just slams that sledgehammer into his ankle, and you hear the crunching, and he's just absolutely dying. Now, again, I forgot to say this a second ago. The reason she's doing this is because she's like, I know you've been out of your room. Remember the little thing that he knocked off and put up? She was like, you know what? I saw that the penguin is now faced a different way. You got into my scrapbook. The knife is missing. At one point before that, he tries to get the knife. So she's already taken it. So his game's up. She knows. Okay. So that's where this hobbling thing takes effect. So she does the hobbling thing, and then she's like, one more. And she goes to his other ankle, and she crushes it too. And so you can imagine, I mean, he's going to pass out. I mean, this is obviously horrifying. Now keep in mind, this whole time Paul's car was in the snow on the side of the road. So the snow's melted. People have found this. People are looking. The agent has been talking to the police. So like, all this is going on outside this horrific scene at Annie Wilkes' home. Paul is her prisoner. He's writing this book against his will, so on and so forth. Now, the sheriff, whose name is Buster, keep in mind one of our dog's name is Buster, just side note there, he will see Annie have a freak out in town over some like little parking situation or something. And he's like, that's like really aggressive. So he starts like looking into her. So she becomes on his map. Now, this researching into her will cause him to go to Annie's home to be like, what's up? And she is doing her crazy thing. Right before he gets there, she sees it. She goes and she, sedates Paul. She puts him down in the bottom of the basement at the bottom floor. And then she comes up and she's totally calm and totally chill with the officer. She lets Buster in. He kind of walks around. She wants to make him coffee or tea or something. And he's asking her stuff. And she's like, oh yeah, this is my room. I decided I was going to write, about Paul Sheldon and da-da-da-da-da. And I hope they find him and so on and so forth. And so you're just like, oh my God, she's going to get away with it. And so he thanks her and he leaves. And when he gets on the porch, like Paul does something, he knocks the grill over in the basement, and the sheriff hears this and he runs back in and he's like, Annie, are you okay or whatever? And so he hears Paul yelling, I'm down here, I'm down here. And he goes and he opens his door to the basement and he sees Paul and he's like, oh my God. And then Annie blows him away and she shoots him and you just see him explode and he falls down. I mean, it's horrible. And she's standing there with a gun and you're just like, oh my God. So obviously this is not good. She has just killed the local sheriff. So now this is it for Annie. She's like, okay, that's it. It's time. This is going to end everything. She's like, I'm going to take you out and I'm going to take myself out. Like it's that. And he's like, Annie, no. He's like, we have to finish the book. Misery has to live. And then we'll do it. And shock, I mean, I couldn't believe she didn't want that to happen in the first place. But she's like, okay, you're almost done, so let's get this going, like tonight kind of a thing. Now, once he gets close to finishing, he asks for his 3 things that he always does at the end of a book. And she's like, I know, a cigarette, a match, and Dom Perignon for him to drink. And she's like, and then a champagne glass. And he's like, no, this time 2. And she's so flattered. So Annie goes to get all the stuff, okay? So while Paul was downstairs, he took the lighter fluid and a match. And he comes up and he soaks the manuscript, okay? He soaks it, he balls it all up, and she comes in with this stuff and she's like, and then Paul's all like, does Misery live? Does she have the baby? Does this happen? It's all right here. And then he lights it on fire. I mean, y'all, if you want to look up damn karma, it's this whole damn movie right here, okay? So Annie freaks out. She's like, oh, oogie boogie, cock-a-doodle-doo. She jumps down, and then Paul takes that typewriter and clocks her upside the damn head, y'all. Takes her out, okay? And this huge fight ensues, okay? And he ends up obviously taking her out. She'll end up falling again, and her head hits the the edge of the typewriter. It's so painful looking, y'all. You can obviously tell it's like a fake head, but for the time they made this, I mean, I think they did a good job. And another part is when he's like shoving the burning paper in her mouth. I mean, y'all, it's bad. And again, the book is 10 times worse, y'all. So there's that. Officers come, he survives the whole 9 yards. At the end of the movie, what we'll see is he's out to dinner or lunch with his agent and basically talking about why he does not want to write a book about what happened. I mean, it's just such a horrible thing for him. And one of the waitresses coming up, he thinks it's Annie. And she's like, I'm your #1 fan. And then he kind of comes out of it and it's, it's not Annie, obviously. And so you're left off with that. So that is the story of Misery and Annie Wilkes. Y'all, when I tell you, this is literally when I might go read the damn book again. This is one of my favorite movies, okay? If you're not into horror films, I mean, I wish I could say watch this anyways, because Kathy Bates is so amazing in this, and it is such an amazing storyline. Again, it's the only Stephen King book that I was ever able to completely rip through, okay? Now, I'm curious to hear from y'all. #1, do you like Stephen King? #2, if you did, what's your favorite book? Or most of them obviously start off as books. So what's your favorite Stephen King story, I should say? I'm curious to hear. Now, again, don't forget, if you want to hear my true crime stuff, check out Reporting Live from My Sofa. The link's in the description. Thank you for coming here to listen to me talk about my obsession with horror films. I really appreciate it. And until my next movie binge, I'll see you then.